Hello and welcome to the Let's Talk Fabulous show. And I am telling you today is going to be a show like no other, especially if you are someone who, well, have you been like letting life happen to you as opposed to being really intentional about it? Because if you are, then I want you to go ahead and grab a pen and paper and be ready to take notes, because we've got a panel of fabulous guests here today who are going to help you really be more intentional about creating a fabulous life. So let's talk. Hello again, and I am Gloria Grace Rand, one of the Fab Five hosts of the show. And I, again, want to welcome you, whether you're watching on live on social media or streaming live on E360 TV, or you're joining us on replay. I'm glad you're here. And I want to go around the room, and we're going to have our guests tell us their name and where they are coming in, where they're joining us from today. So I'm going to go to the lovely woman on that direction. Oh, whatever, that direction. You know what? You're just Tania. Go ahead.
Thank you, and God bless. I'm Tania Khazaal, and I'm in Ottawa, Canada right now.
All right, wonderful. And I think we've got another person who may be in your, not exactly your neck of the woods, but Jennifer, you want to share with us where you are?
Yeah, I'm in Canada too. I'm Jennifer, regular in Victoria, BC.
All right, awesome. And then down below, we've got Jodi.
Well, hi, I'm from Canada, but not now. I'm Jodi Wellman, and I am in 105-degree Palm Springs, California right now.
All right. And then over next to you, we've got...
Hi, I'm Sheila Clemenson, and I'm visiting from Louisville, Colorado, outside of Boulder.
All right, awesome. And I'm on the other side of the United States, so I'm in, and also really south of our lovely Canadian ladies here. So I am in Melbourne, Florida, coming to you today. And so as I mentioned at the start, we're going to be talking about intentions. And I also want to welcome our digital audience and make sure that we want to hear where you're from too as well. So, you know, let us know in the comments, and also hashtag live and hashtag replay. But I think actually what I want to do is we've got a great video that is going to kick everything off for us today in talking about this lovely subject. So I'm going to go ahead and play that right now.
You know, Gloria has put together another great session on this topic of living with intention. And I don't know about you, but every time I hear that idea, I get excited, but also it gets a little squirmy inside, because it makes me realize sometimes I have work to do to actually come up with what my intention is. Like, where do we put our energy if we want to go and live this wild and fabulous life? You know that quote by Henry David Thoreau, "Go confidently in the direction of your dreams, live the life you've imagined." It's always struck me, it's kind of hard to go confidently and live the life you've imagined if we haven't actually done the work to imagine it. And that's what I think is so great about a session like this, where we can talk about what intentions do we have for ourselves. We have to actually stop first and fathom something fabulous, and then go for it and summon up the courage and do all the great things to go and live that life. So let's do the fathoming. Let's do the intention setting. Let's get excited about what's possible. And then we can start living like we mean it, right?
So I love that. And I'm going to kind of move things around here and put you in our little spotlight so you can talk a little bit more about this, because I definitely can relate to this as well, about this importance of being able to come up with, you know, something first in order to be able to live this life. So, you know, share a little bit more about that, Jodi.
Oh, happy to, Gloria. You know, I find myself, and I hope I'm not the only one, and I just hope that I'm going to see some nodding or at least some kind of thumbs up somewhere, that there's this idea of we all want to live a best version of our lives, and that well, no one will argue with that. And yet when we actually ask ourselves in the bright light of day, like, well, but wait, what does that actually look like other than a little bit of a fragment of a dream or just like an iota of maybe how it used to be when it was great? It takes work, doesn't it, to actually stop and imagine. And then I think what it does is, as I alluded in that little video clip, like it gets a little bit itchy to then think, oh, but if what would my version of intentional life worth living look like? And I just want to acknowledge that the fact that it takes a little bit of time and energy, and that quite frankly is the crux of, I think, a lot of life, is that it does, we have to give a crap, maybe even two craps, in order for us to live this really fabulous life, because it doesn't happen to us, like to use your words, Gloria, earlier, like a great life kind of going through the motions happening to us. So if it takes a little bit of effort, I feel like we want to situate ourselves. And for me, I recommend like putting ourselves in a really great space, like a really beautiful hotel lobby. You don't even have to check into the hotel and spend $1. You can go and sit in a really beautiful lobby and they will let you loiter almost all day. I've done it. Or by the lake, or in your favorite cozy chair, or at a friend's house, wherever you feel inspired, or in a conversation with people, or just alone looking through some old journals or pictures. Say, what does a life worth living look like to me? And by honoring that time and acknowledging fear, that sometimes when we put it down on paper or when we think about it, we want to head for the hills because it feels like, well, that's not realistic. Like I can't live a life where I wake up and do yoga every day because I have screaming kids or whatever your deal is, right? So acknowledge I'm allowed to fantasize and fathom and put it down. I'm not committing to anything right now. This doesn't have to be the rest of my amazing life, but it gives you at least a little bit of a worksheet to go off of, if that makes sense. So those are some initial thoughts. I don't know what you think.
I love that. I think that's so perfect because it is amazing that if you don't even come up with something, an idea, then of course nothing's going to happen.
I want to say something.
Sheila, you look like
really
you
into this, Jodi. When I'm talking with my clients, I'm like, you want to go in the direction of exciting, like interesting, exciting, and then you really want to go to scary, exciting. That's like really the ultimate destination. And I think that taps into what you were saying so much of, Jodi.
I want that. I want scary, exciting. I think we should hire you, Sheila. But who would I really in a rational moment? Like, I think I'll opt out of scary, but when you're describing it that way, like there's something sizzly about it that's actually alluring, right? It's like scary in the right dose. That's like manageable. Like it's not going to be, scary enough to maim us or kill us, but it's enough to actually ignite. I love that.
I asked my client, I said, what would happen if you got that job, that dreamy job that you want? And he said, I'd poop my pants. And I'm like, well, he said something a little more vulgar than that, but I was like, I said, but that's scary, exciting, right? That's also stepping into that scary, exciting dream that you have. And it's actually the showing up part and the accountability part of finally needing to do that too, that scares us so much, but it is exciting to think of being there.
I think what's also amazing, I want to add, is anxiety and excitement are actually part of the exact same brain. Like it's part of the same brain. So a lot of the times it really is excitement and they're like, I'm nervous. It's because of the fear of the unknown. Yeah. But it's like that unknown is what creates you. That's what builds you. It's like that going through it is like, oh, I didn't even realize. You're right. It is excitement. It's like that excitement of, is it possible? And then there's the fear of like, exactly like you said, Sheila, I have to hold myself accountable to actually make it happen. It's not just going to fall in my lap.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. How about you, Jennifer? What do you think about this?
Yeah, I'm really thinking about the energy and the passion that goes along with that, and that really takes us into having the kind of impact we want to have in our life. It really speaks to embodied leadership, going from like career to calling, for example, and being able to create that transformation in our lives that goes beyond anything that's ever existed before. And that is pretty scary and exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting, that's we've been talking on the Fab Show actually the last few weeks a little bit about this, and I want to play a song right now that was on a show last week or the week before. But I think relates, and I want to be able to, because it brings something up, and I want to be able to talk to you all about this, I think, a little bit, and maybe even especially Sheila as well, about how the difference between intention and something else. So let me play the song and you'll see.
I see the road, it's bending wide, chasing dreams I can't let slide. A spark ignites, I feel alive. Plans in my pocket, fire in my chest. Every step forward, no time to rest. Goals, vision, action, that's my way. Building tomorrow from today. Goals, vision, action, it's my drive. Living the dream while I'm alive. Clouds may gather, storms may rise, but I keep climbing, chasing skies. The finish line's where truth resides. Hope in my fingers, grit in my hands, turning my whispers into demands. Goals, vision, action, that's my way. Building tomorrow from today. Goals, vision, action, it's my drive. Living the dream while I'm alive.
So I was talking with our lovely, wonderful executive producer of the show, Tamara Hunter, about goals and intentions and goals. And I want to put it out to you, wonderful panelists, and ask you, are they the same thing? You know, or do you need to have one before the other, or what do you think? So let's see. I'm going to see who I can call on first. I'm going to go, Jennifer. You're smiling over there. So
Like shaking my head. No, they're not. No, they're not. But you know what? One of the things I found is it's important to root down to rise up. And so I'm just going to go down to those roots for a moment, because the way that I consider that is our approach to life. And I'll explain a little bit about what I mean about that, because we can look at it through a mental construct or a lens of that we're humans on this spiritual journey. And we can also look at it like we're spiritual beings on a human journey. And whatever construct we're most aligned with in that is what's going to influence in how we approach our day, and how we live our day is how we live our life. And so, for instance, if we're humans on the spiritual journey, then we're seeking, we're looking for that connection, we're kind of drawn to things. We may start out with exercise and eating well in the morning. Whereas if we're spiritual beings on a having a human experience, then we tend to start our days more out with guiding principles or affirmations or meditation. And we're more inclined to take inspired action that's soul-led, rather than the personality starting. If we're starting with that human outlook, then We're more likely to want to control things and set goals and be more performance-based, work under pressure, rather than being more present and being on purpose.
I love that. I love that. Tanya, you're nodding your head a little bit. Or Tanya, I'm sorry. I apologize.
It's
Tanya.
okay. Tanya is the same thing, depending on where you are in the world. So for me, I always start with vision. And I've been teaching that for a long time, because if you're not so clear on what that vision is, and then it's harder to make the goals and actually commit to the goals. So I find that get so clear on what that vision is and then reverse engineer it, because now you're so caught up in that future pacing, which is important to be present. But when you're excited about the future, now you have a reason to do the goals and a reason to show up through the actions. And I think it's really vision, goals, and actions, in my opinion.
I like that. Yeah. How about you, Jodi? Because you were kind of talking a little bit at the start of this about the vision part too, right?
Yeah. I noticed I was using the word fathoming, and so there's that. I find myself listening, and I'm so inspired, and I'm also finding myself aware that I'm looking for more ease in life these days. And so for me, that means I'm just willing to conflate as much as I can to just keep things straight. And for me, if it means a goal, to split hairs between that and intention, which I do think intention is like the kernel of excitement, and then the goal is like more concrete. But I feel like maybe I don't even want to care. Maybe I just want to make it that if I have an inkling about what make me feel alive, I just want to grab that, like catch a butterfly or I don't know, little, what do they call them? Fireflies. Hold on to that and then go do something about it. And so whether for me, it's about the step, or it's like how we get kind of concerned sometimes about what's the difference between purpose and meaning, and then back to ease. I don't even care right now. Let's just grab onto it if it feels energizing and find a way to take one step forward to go towards that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, I'm going to play Sheila. I'm going to do your video now because I think you get to the crux of like this next thing that we need to focus on. So I'm going to play your video and then we'll talk to you about this.
When Gloria told me about sharing my thoughts about designing an intentional life, I think about what I do as a career coach, and I am all about career design, lifestyle design, and finding that balance for people, for them to create a career and a life for themselves that they can live into their values and their strengths. They can live into that bullseye. The bullseye that I define is that place in your wheelhouse that is a sweet spot where you're bringing everything that engages you, energizes you, and is most interesting to you into your job and your life. You know, sometimes that's living meaningful, purposeful work. And, you know, really helping my clients to thrive, be engaged, love what they do is really how I measure being a successful coach with them.
So what I wanted to talk about now is kind of talking about this idea, because you mentioned this about balance and having everything pulled together. So can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I see this as a blend between career design and lifestyle design, ensuring that you are more strategic and intentionally building a life for yourself that meets your needs, meets your must-haves. You stay away from your deal breakers. You're really working smarter rather than harder in setting yourself up for success. When I look at the bullseye that I help people define, that's everything. That is everything that you bring forward as a person. That's your strengths and your talents and your values and your interests and your knowledge and your abilities and your talents. That can even be your latent aptitudes, things that you really want to do, but you don't know if you can do. And I think that's almost even more important, is like focusing on what energizes you most and helping you move forward into that. I also think it's working smarter rather than harder. So I focus on that, being strategic and intentional by forming those goals around those visions that you're having, and then helping you develop a strategic action plan to getting there. Sometimes it's visioning the life that you want and then creating that from going backwards.
Right.
And so, but being able to see that, almost like the genie comes out of the bottle and says, Gloria, what kind of life do you want? Tell me what it is, and I will create that for you, right? I think it's very much like, us putting that out there to the universe spiritually. And then sometimes it's doing that organic dance with the universe and making that happen. I think we're in control of a lot of things. We might not be in control of everything. I think that we have to, put ourselves out there and see what happens, see where we're led, see who invites us in, see who we invite in, who says yes. And there's a lot of different, it's a dance. In my mind, it's a dance in creating all of that.
Yeah. That I love that. That's really good at being able to talk about that. And yeah, because you do need to set intentions, but you also have to sometimes just let things happen. And actually, which brings me to, well, Jodi, you look like you were going to say something. I'll let you go first, and then I'm gonna ask a question for all of you.
But I'm always going to look like I'm excited listening to you guys talk. So like, no matter what, I'll just be like weirdly alert. Forewarned. The idea, like, I love what you're saying about this the lifelong balancing act between deciding whether or not to, like, the being versus doing, right? Do I fathom and then make all these action plans, which can feel super energizing or daunting, or do I have an intention and sit back and let things unfold? And I think that I've become, and maybe some of you also love this concept about equanimity, right? Or amor fati, like loving your fate. But I think I'm just conscious of that push and pull. And I'd love to hear other opinions about maybe it's a phase in life where it's about action, creating. And the old phrase about, like, inspiration finds you working. Famous artist said it. I'm gapping on who said it. Let's just say Van Gogh for now. Let's give him all the credit. So like creating this idea and then going for it versus that, like, an equanimity, like, I'm okay with what happens. I know that some crappy things are going to happen and I can be okay with it. I will be level-headed about how it happens. I will also be level-headed about all the amazing things I make for myself, because I don't want to get, too big for my britches. So I'm in a phase too where I'm just trying to understand the dance between taking this, like, creating intention and taking purposeful action versus sitting back and saying, oh, honey, you are not in control. Like, how arrogant and naive and cute of you to think that you're the one driving. Like, sit back and see, without sitting back and, like, having a smoke and waiting for, like, life to happen. Right. So yeah.
You know what? I love it. So yeah, and there was so much coming up for me. I don't know about any of you all were thinking about, because one thing that I did want to ask you about is, what is the difference though between being, let's say, intentional, but then also being, like, maybe overly, rigid, or really, tied to, like, okay, having a goal. What do you think about that, Jodi?
You just gave me this image of what may or may not be me, like having an image and a goal and being ambitious or, like, oriented to, like, I want to do this thing. And then, like, therefore it's like the clinging, and then I see, like, the white knuckles, it needs to be this way. And if it is not, then, like, well, my happiness is contingent on it happening this way. And then if it doesn't, well, there's my well-being in the crapper. Right. So this is a certainly ripe. And I think that back to equanimity, that what version of me could be the person that actually I trust can run with it anyways. Like, throw me a loop. I dare you. But it's not even like you have to dare, like, life's going to throw it. It's just how many at once. So might as well anticipate and appreciate when things are going the way that you quote unquote want, or you're, like, your perceived definition of, like, this is a content, happy life. And then almost like a warm embrace of, oh, this is the cacophony of life. Like, this next thing coming down the pike, I can handle it. And in fact, I'm going to like myself a lot better when I prove to myself that I made it through this murky time. and it's going to help me be a cooler person for the next thing that comes around, good, bad, or otherwise.
Yeah, I love that. How
I think-
about you? How
I
about you,
think
Tania? I knew you were going to say
Yeah.
something.
I think
knew it.
what's powerful about it is we're always in a state of ebb or flow, right? And it's like a lot of the times when we're in such a flow, we feel like it's going to last forever, not realizing that we have to go back into a state of ebb, because that's where, for me, like true happiness comes from progress in whatever way you're progressing. And so most of the progress happens in ebb, which sucks, but it's also so beautiful. And you don't usually realize it until you're in flow state, right? Where it's like, wait, now I'm getting all the lessons. What happened to the season of blessings? Now it's lesson after lesson. And I think the word that kept sticking out to me when you guys were talking was surrendering, right? It's like, I know where I'm headed. I know what I want, but I'm not, like you said, Jodi, I'm not married to the outcome, because sometimes what I want for me is not always what's best for me. So I have to surrender to a higher power. I mean, I'm obviously a strong faith believer. You have to surrender to say, if this is the best thing for me, then I'm going to keep progressing. If not, you're going to show me something along the way that I'm going to take as a sign from you. And so a lot of the times that happens in ebb flow. And I could tell you, my life in the last year has been like in a lot of ebb, but in a way where it's so clear that it hasn't been like the valley of despair kind of ebb. It's been just a lot more clarity around that, that's turning into a flow. And I'm like, okay, that's why I just allowed that surrender to kind of happen.
Oh, wow. So good. And I think this is a good point I'm going to go ahead and play. We're going to hear from Jennifer now, because she's got another unique perspective on all of this discussion as well. So I can't wait for you to see this video.
There was a time in my life when I had lost everything, including my vision for the future. And there was still this little spark inside of me that was saying, this isn't the way I wanted my life to end. And with that, there was a surge of energy that jolted me up and out of bed. And it was a realization of the word passion and what it truly meant. It wasn't just energy, it was a calling. And when you break up the word passion, you'll realize that it's pass I on. That I is your soul's expression of what you're here to pass on in this lifetime. And that is what intentional living is all about, is designing your life around your rhythm, your unique gifts, and that I that you're here to pass on in this lifetime.
All right, Jennifer, I'll move you up here. So I love that. Number one, you scared the heck out of me with the video. I was like, because I was like, oh, okay. Like, so I thought that was so cool. But talk a little bit more about this passion. I love how you say it's pass I on. So
Yeah, that I is your soul's expression of what you're here to pass on in this lifetime. And this is what you become known for. This is what gets remembered. This is the sacred legacy that you leave when you're aligned with your highest self, your highest level of being. And you mentioned earlier about balance. And for me, balance is really living your truth. And when you're living your truth, then we start from the being that prompts the doing, that gives us the having. And quite often we do it backwards. We think we have to have something and be able to do something in order to become something. You know, and that is also a very interesting way to look at life and how we're approaching it. And when we talk about the intentional living, the intention, you talk about the rigidity. It reminds me of Muji talking about intention as being inner tension. And it was really interesting perspective to think about that, is what kind of energy it brings up when we're creating intentions and trying to control outcomes based on it, trying to manifest that particular intention, to maybe hold it lightly. It might be more about the self-awareness, cultivating that so that we make conscious choices in how we're living, and coming from that space of the I, our potency, our truth, authenticity as that superpower, that we get to offer our highest contribution to the world, to our family, to our relationships, and to ourselves as well.
I love that. Sheila, what do you think about that? Especially that inner attention. I like that way of thinking about it. Never heard that before.
The inner tension piece is so fascinating, right? Because I deal with imposter syndrome a lot with people, right? And that imposter syndrome piece is stretching themselves to really be who they want to be, who they came here to show up to be, right? And sometimes there is that disconnect. Can I really do it? Do I have what it takes? Am I accessing everything that I need? And it is sometimes that stretching yourself into showing up and being who you came here to be, and owning that, and finding whatever it is within yourself to build that confidence and to move in that direction. I say sometimes it's just baby steps. You don't have to jump off the cliff or jump into the deep end of the pool. You can dip your toe in. And so I think, we help people to dip their toe in. Sometimes we help them after they've jumped off the cliff, and then they're like, I'm not sure why I did that. Can you help me? I don't know about you, but like I do that with my clients too. So it's kind of funny, it's one or the other sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're just going to take a quick pause because I saw some purple hearts going by. So I'm just going to play a little video about that real quick. Yeah, we like to be able to honor the members of the Purple Pen Heart Club, and they're always forever remembered, as it says, in our hearts. And so we just honor. They know who they are, so we just wanted to do that. And there's so much here, and I'm trying to figure out where I want to go, because there's so much here. And I think one thing I want to get back to talking a little bit more about the legacy part of this, and how does being intentional about your life, how does that play into creating a legacy? Jodi, you want to tackle that?
Legacy was the exact word and concept I was going to spin off of what Sheila was saying. And it's so much of the stuff that I talk about, living before we die. Mm-hmm. And this idea about intention, whether we look at it as it's selfishly for us, like living a life that we want to live, and I don't think that's selfish for the record, but more of an inward approach about what's going to make me feel alive. And the nice little overlap, I don't know, let's do a Venn diagram on the spot, between also a life that may or may not be generative for other people, and or a life we would be proud to look back on, so that when people describe us. And so this idea about tapping into your strengths, like the point about passion, like the point about what Jennifer is saying of being mindful of using your gifts and talents. It doesn't even have to be, I look at that and I think that that's crucial. And it can be something that you don't even define, like the thing that is a quality of value, really, it comes down to in the coaching world, right? That is a meaningful principle to you that you would love to be described as, let's just say, from the casket. And then you look at it and go, well, to what extent am I living a life right now that would earn me the right to be described as whatever that is? Like you might want to say, I want people to say that I was kind or really organized or really creative or whatever it is. I came from a workshop where a gentleman was like, I want to be described as the guy that always wore cool socks. I was like, hey, whatever floats your boat. So cool. And his socks were in fact cool. I'm like mission accomplished, sir. But are we being intentional, right? Like, and I just want to throw in one more thing about legacy, because this thing just smittens me, this idea about in research that sometimes we are more motivated to avoid leaving a negative legacy than we are to leave a positive one. So cool exercise to say, oh, I would love to be described as kind. And yet it could be more resonant for some of us, many of us, to say, would I roll over in my grave if I was described as X, like maybe, cheap or kind of mean or unkind or selfish? And so that's the thing then that we can use in the reverse to say, oh, well, then can I be more intentional today about if I don't want to be described as being selfish, then how do I make sure today I prove? How do I live intentionally in such a way that it's very clear that I am not a selfish person And then you get to live that way. So it's a neat shortcut, neat exercise. So much fun, obviously, imagining rolling over in the grave, of course.
I love it. Well, I'm going to play something here that we've been playing on the Fab Show for a while now that deals with this specifically. So listen.
In the quiet moments, when the sun begins to rise, we find the strength within us. In the stories of our lives, not in gold or glory, but in hearts we've touched with grace, in the love we share with others, in each kind and gentle face. Your legacy is the love you leave behind, in the hands you've held and the souls you've helped to find. It's the laughter in the children, the wisdom in the old. It's the light you sparked in others, in the stories that are told. Through the trials and the triumphs, in the battles that we fight, it's the courage and the kindness that will always shine so bright. In the lessons that we teach and the dreams that we inspire, in the way we lift each other higher and higher. Your legacy is the love you leave behind, in the hands you've held and the souls you've helped to find. It's the laughter in the children, the wisdom in the old. It's the light you sparked in others, in the stories that are told. In the final song you sung, and the curtains drawing near, it's the moments filled with love that will echo year to year. In the footprints on the path that guide the lost and blind, your legacy will live on in the hearts you've left behind. Your legacy is the love you leave behind, in the hands you've held, the souls you've helped to find. It's the laughter in the children, the wisdom in the old. It's the light you sparked in others, in the stories that are told. So let's live with open hearts and give with all our might, for the legacy we leave is a beacon in the night, in the echoes of our actions, in the whispers of the wind. Our legacy of love is where it all begins. Our legacy of love is where it all begins.
Your legacy will live on in the hearts you've left behind.
And we want to thank Steampunk Poe for putting up that wonderful, creating that wonderful video and that wonderful song. And I love what he's saying here. With every new sunrise, there's a new chance, but with every sunset, you blew it. Well, I don't know about that. Come on. But you know what? I'm gonna bring Tania in here. And gosh, this show is flying by today. But especially because we're going to go to your video in just a second. But I just first, just tell me a little bit about what was your impression about that song and what we're talking about. You know, how legacy fits in with our intentional living, because it is going to go well with what you talk about in a moment.
Yeah, so I think what's beautiful about legacy is I always looked at it is it's not what you want people to remember you for, it's how you want to be remembered. And so every time I'd ask myself, like, how do I want to be remembered? How do I want my kids to remember me? My husband, people around me. a lot of times you think legacy, and maybe that's just me, but I grew up in as like legacy is like leaving millions behind, or that, you know, everything that I'm building. But it's like, no, it's how you're going to be remembered. Was she kind or always miserable? Well, you know, maybe she made millions and millions, but how she was treating everything at home. And so it has everything to do with intentional living, because when you have that legacy, which also ties into vision and everything else, it brings you back to saying, am I living today exactly as I want to be remembered and how I want to live the rest of my life, and working towards that vision. So,
yeah. And I think what you're going to be talking about here is so important that we haven't really touched on it. So I'm looking forward to talking about this a little bit more, is about relationships. So I'm going to play your video now.
Hey, I'm Tania Khazaal, and I want to share quickly about how you can turn around any situation in your life as long as you're determined to. As someone who has strong faith and someone who believes that our family unit is so incredibly sacred, I went from not having the healthiest relationship with my mom for a very long time to completely shattering all generational cycles and having the best relationship with her. And I made that decision, and I find it's very easy in our generation to do the cutoff culture. And if someone is narcissistic or toxic or triggering to us, we tend to avoid them. And the biggest thing that I realized is when my mom got really sick and she was on her deathbed, I started to grieve her while she was still alive, and I realized that something needed to change. Something needed to change, and I rebuilt my relationship with her. I now came from a place of compassion for my own healing, not excusing her behavior or justifying it, but for my own healing. And I could say that we have the best relationship, and I'm forever grateful.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about this. Yeah.
I mean, as someone who went from health coach to business coach to everything in between, I just realized that one of the biggest things was how much we hold on to emotionally from childhood to what defined us and everything. And like the lack of forgiveness and the lack of compassion and everything. And I feel like we're living in such a fast pace that it's so easy to almost put those incredibly instrumental emotions that we carry aside. And for me, my happiest point when I became my healthiest and happiest was when I actually started to prioritize the people in my life and the relationships that I was having in a way that I was no longer triggered by their behaviors or what they said or did to me, but coming from a place of, why is their story like that? What was their story? And the more I started to understand everyone else's story, the more I made space for that, for them. And then it like blew up my heart. And I was like, oh, now I understand why God loves everybody so much. And I just felt like it made everything lighter. So that things that used to bother me when I was younger with my sister, because obviously I didn't have a great relationship with my mom, which created resentment towards my sister, who's like my best friend now. I think we text each other probably 300 times a day, but it just made everything lighter. I felt it. I think relationships are so sacred. And like I said in the video, cutoff culture is becoming more and more common now, when 26% of families, like kids are not speaking to their parents and things like that, where it's disheartening to think that that has a big effect on your legacy, on your vision, on your health, on your happiness, on your ability to intentionally live. And that's one of my biggest focuses right now.
Sheila, you were nodding your head a lot while Tania was talking. What do you want to add to this?
My gosh, yes. Relationships are complicated. I think at the best of times, and with everything that I've been in my life, and I've been through something pretty incredible in my past with my first husband, Grant, having ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, and passing away at a young age. And without my support systems and my support networks, we would not have made it through. And so when you're speaking about relationships, it was the relationships that we had built that got us through. And so when you really look at being resilient and finding your way, it is about, what can you grab onto in those relationships, even though in our humanness that we're not perfect, for spiritual beings having a human experience. And sometimes we feel like we're failing miserably. At least maybe I've stood in that place in the past. it can be so hard. But what you say about relationships is, what do you put in? What do you invest in your relationships? It's not just what you get out of them. And I think that we have to remember that as well.
Yeah. And it comes back to being intentional, doesn't it? About how we want to show up in that relationship. Jodi, you wanted to add something here?
Oh, I love the story. It's beautiful and profound. And I immediately listened with antenna up for the point about how it sounds like your dear mom was sick, and that could have been a motivator. And I think that is such a interesting thought experiment for the rest of us, because wake-up calls, I think, are so scary and also helpful to have us either live like we mean it, if it's our own wake-up call, or for us to realize what we may lose in someone else. And I think that no one would ask for it in the right mind. And yet, for the rest of us that don't want to have a parent or a loved one that we may have a tough relationship with, it could just be our own exercise to say, wait a second, what would I do if I got a call today that they were in a really tough spot health-wise? And that tends to do the wake up, which is unfortunate. We are wired that way, but we are often. And so not that is the totality of your story. I don't mean to paint it over with that brush, but that's the lens that I see the world through, right? Is the scarcity of time, or like the scarcity of oh, I almost lost this relationship, where I could be losing it. It's worth more. Like the value goes up, right?
But you're right, Jodi, because this is the biggest thing that I've realized as well is you're right. I mean, we have to live this life as if it could end today, but also that it's going to last forever. And a lot of the times, because day after day could feel like we have this long life, and in a heartbeat, it could change. And so I think the biggest things that helped my relationship, and not even just my relationship, like my husband, his mom left him at 14. He didn't have a relationship with her, and he pretty much lived on his own and raised himself. And I worked so hard on rebuilding his relationship by asking him that exact question. Like, how, if she were to die tomorrow, are you okay with not talking to her? Are you okay with that? Because regret is so much bigger than some of the pain that we've carried while they're living. But when they pass, and that pain and that anger and everything leaves with them, because it does, and I've seen it time and time again, once that settles, you start to approach things differently, which has everything to do with intentional living. Because now it's like, am I really living the way that, without any regrets or anything like that? So fast forward to now, we're best friends. She lives with us. It's insane. It's crazy. And so many people are shocked to see it. But when you come from that lens, it changes so much. And I've helped families repair just off of that, because every single one of us, I think, have experienced some kind of trauma, even though I like to use that word loosely, because I think that there's people that have definitely endured much worse trauma than I ever did. But regardless of what we experienced that put us in a state of harm or pain, I would say pain, it usually comes down to they probably did not get better because it was probably much worse in their household. And that kind of compassion is transformational.
Well, you had mentioned earlier, Tania, about your sister as well. And so I want to just let you all know, you may not know, but there's something relevant about sisters going on today. And I think also sisters don't always have to be blood either, because I consider all of you my soul sisters, from other mothers, because, I think as women, we're always stronger together. So we're running out of time already. It's like we've only got about maybe 5 more minutes left in the show here. And I just want to thank you right off the bat right now for so much wonderful wisdom. But I want to talk about one other thing, because I think we've maybe alluded to a little bit, but I would love, especially as we're wrapping up here, to leave our audience with something, is how do you how do you stay intentional? Like when you are going through a stressful period, let's say maybe you are dealing with, maybe an illness or something going on in the family, or, or just, or something going on with work. So how do you still maintain being intentional? Jennifer, I'll put you in the love seat first.
The love seat.
Yeah.
I would say if I was to sum it up to one thing, it would be strengthening my divine connection. That is really important for me. It holds my faith. It carries that. It allows me to roll it over, and not try to control any outcome or anything like that. And it gives me a sense of safety and security in that, and know that that's a true relationship. It's unconditional and helps me remember what's really important and gives me pause for that.
Yeah. All right. I appreciate that. Tanya, how about you?
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, if I had to hold the weight on my shoulders, I don't know how I would survive. That's why I have so much faith. I think intentional is just, it's really bringing it back to time and saying, I don't have to look at time being so scarce. I could, as long as I'm spending 5-10 minutes of intentional time with my kids, 5-10 minutes intentional with myself, 5-10 minutes intentionally with God, it just makes everything lighter versus feeling so much pressure of the busy days and all of that. But I could say without God carrying my worries and saying, okay, I know I trust you with this. There's something in Arabic. I have a Middle Eastern background, even though I'm born and raised in Canada. They call it tawakkul. Tawakkul means, God, I'm going to take inspired action, but I'm going to trust you with everything else that's going to happen. And that's it. It feels light.
I love that. Sheila, how about you?
I think that we need to really connect with the fact that that God and the universe are far more brilliant than we are. and if we just let go and just, be open to not having to figure everything out on our own, and just really trust that, if we're putting our best intentions out there, that doors are going to open, things are going to happen, and we just need to open our eyes and see it, and then reach out for it and connect with it.
I love that. Jodi, how about you?
The best way that I found to stay intentional and alert to life is through memento mori, the concept of remembering we must die. So Tanya, it's a bit of a takeoff. You say you don't look at time as scarce. I totally look at time as scarce. And I love doing that in a, mildly morbid, but not that morbid way of saying, like, time is ticking. We are totally temporary. I have 1,746 Mondays left to live if I live to an average life. And that makes me feel like, oh, honey, do not delay any dreams or desires. Like, let's get on with it now with intention.
Yeah. That is so important. All right. So we've got, I'm going to have you go around and just say one sentence of advice for our audience. Just if you want to add one other thing that you haven't talked about. Jennifer, I'll go with you first.
I love all of the engagement from the audience. I've been seeing all the comments. I want to really appreciate that. And it also makes me feel about the meaningful engagement. That's intentional living as well.
How about you, Tanya?
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate everybody here as well. I think my biggest thing that I'd love to leave you guys with is every single person here has a purpose. If you trust in God and you take one step every single day, you will live your purpose and just let it unfold the way it's meant to. It's a beautiful journey.
Love that. Sheila?
I want to say something about resilience and how powerful resilience is, and that we can get through so many difficult things in our lives. And we have to trust in our own resilience and in our connections with others.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jodi?
I might be a broken record here, but befriend the Reaper, acknowledging and not denying the fact that we are limited time only can be that very thing that helps us live with more urgency and intention.
Well, I want to thank all of you wonderful, lovely ladies for sharing all your brilliance. And I know our audience received a lot of value out of this conversation today. And if for some reason you were watching on social media and you came in late, you can go to E360 TV and you can actually watch the whole show there. So you can go back in and see it. And I would love for you to do that, and make sure that you join us again next week. We've got another Fab Five host who is going to be presenting another fabulous show. So I'm not even sure what the topic is, but I know it's going to be awesome. So until then, and until I see you again, have a fabulous, fabulous life.